Dragoon, arguably one of the most intense Sonic bosses of all time. Originally, it was the semi-final boss in Sonic Unleashed where you fought him as the Werehog. But then it was remade in Generations where you fight him as modern Sonic. And in Sonic Forces, well, no one cares about that one actually. Both of these excluding Forces are really solid fights. Now, despite sharing similar designs and having the same name, both of these bosses are almost entirely different from each other. So clearly, only one of these is better than the other, and that's what I plan to find out in this video. So I'll be comparing these bosses based off these 7 categories each individually. Anyways, without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get started with the first one. Starting off with build-up, in Sonic Unleashed, you have to go through the absolute gauntlet of a level that was Eggman Land, which if we were able to finish in less than 20 minutes in your first try, then I must have a serious skill issue. Anyways, brief warning, I just rewatched the cutscene, so I might be getting some of this wrong. But in the story, Sonic has to get through this level in order to reach the last Gaia Temple where he can place the final Chaos Emerald to restore the planet. It all seems fine for a minute, but then Eggman comes out of nowhere and basically tells him, you did absolutely nothing and Dark Eye is gonna kill you. We also get roughly 10 seconds of Sonic ore farming right before the boss starts. Holy peak. So you see, here there are real stakes. The world is literally being torn apart and the Dragoon is the last thing standing in the way of Sonic and him defeating Dark Gaia. Anyways, now that we've established that, let's take a look at Generations.
You're doing great, Sonic! You mean, you're doing great, Sonics?
Anyways, if you couldn't tell, the story doesn't really take itself too seriously. I mean, the cutscene for the Dragoon looks great, but getting there is really anticlimactic. And it's not like it mattered anyways in that way, because things just kind of happen in this story. So anyways, based off of that, I'm definitely gonna have to give the point of build-up to Unleashed. Next up, we have visuals, and here I'm going to be focusing purely on the graphics and the details of the environment. Now, I understand that originally Unleashed ran like dog water on the original consoles, but I'm playing it upscaled at 4K through Unleashed Recompiled, so it still looks great anyways. Now, moving on with that in mind, let's take a look at Sonic Unleashed's Dragoon first. Alright, now the first thing I want to point out about this boss is that if you pay attention to the background, you'll notice that we're actually falling. Now I think this is neat because this is something that I hadn't even noticed until I took a closer look at it. Now the reason I wasn't focusing too much on the background was because I had all my attention on the Dragoon, which the moment you start the battle immediately stands out with its bright red color scheme and it just contrasts to everything else in the dark background. Another thing that also contrasts in the Dragoon are the 2 massive screen circles that it has on its center, which make it really easy to find out where to attack it, which I think is a nice design choice. Also, another neat thing, in this QuickTime event, when Sonic pulls out these blue lights out of Eggman's Dragoon, they are literally just gone forever from the rest of the fight. I don't know why I hadn't noticed that before, I feel like that should have been more obvious. Speaking of obvious things, is that lava moving? Alright, I think you get the point. I really like these neat little details. So now, let's take a look at Generations. Wow. I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought this would have been an easy win for Unleashed, but I'm having second thoughts now. So obviously, what makes this boss visually different immediately is the fact that instead of the Werehog Sonic, we have regular Sonic. So instead of a small platform that we have to walk on, this boss takes place in a massive pipe. Now, let's just take a second to look at the first thing you see when starting this fight. So a lot of things come up when you first start this fight. The first thing I want to point out is that I like how some parts of the pipe are glass, which allows you to see through it and you can see the lava, which I think really emphasizes the danger of the environment. I also really like how the rest of the pipe has a dark bluish color scheme with yellow light spread around it, really making it look like a tunnel. And you know what else moves in tunnels? Cars! Therefore, Sonic is a car. Anyways, moving on to the 2D section, the design of the pipe is mostly the same, except this time you're viewing it at a different angle. And if you paid attention to the background here, you'll notice that we're actually moving past it. And to be honest with you, I don't even know how to begin to describe this. Seriously, please, someone in the comments describe this. And of course, we have the last section of the boss where Sonic is free falling. And I really can't lie, this does look kind of similar to Unleashed's fight, but it still looks really nice. Also, if anyone's wondering why I didn't say anything about the Egg Dragoon itself, it's honestly because, in my opinion, they both look exactly the same to me. Anyways, moving on with that in mind, although I do think that both bosses visually look great, the pure spectacle of the QuickTime events from Unleashed, I honestly think justifies giving the point to it. So I'm gonna be giving this point to Unleashed. For pacing, I'm going to be looking at how well the fights flow from beginning to end, whether that be how it keeps the action moving, or how smoothly it transitions between phases. Starting off with Unleashed Egg Dragoon, its pacing is kind of all over the place. Specifically, I mean, it's kind of inconsistent. Just like my upload schedule! Sorry if I broke your eardrums there, but I promise you it'll make sense in just a second. So as you could probably tell, the Egg Dragoon in Sonic Unleashed takes a pretty slow pace, but that's just to accommodate for the Werehog, which makes sense. But then there are many abrupt cuts, just like my scream, that happen in the boss. Most notably, the QuickTime events. Hopefully it makes sense now. Honestly though, I do think these cuts are worth it for the absolutely cinematic angles that we get to see. Now as for Generations, it's definitely much more straightforward. I mean, for one, the transitions between 3D and 2D are so incredibly smooth, they really just ease in, almost never interrupting the pace. In fact, you even get a warning before each change. So as you can tell, overall, Generations' pace is very consistent. Now honestly, I think the biggest difference in pace between these two fights is the Egg Dragoon itself. You see, in Sonic Unleashed, in order to attack the Egg Dragoon, you have to wait for it to come to you. Whereas in Generations, it's up to you to go up to it. So the big takeaway from this is that in Generations, you get to dictate the pace, whereas in Unleashed, the pace has already been dictated for you by the Egg Dragoon. And personally, for me, I do like to have control over my pace, so I'm gonna be giving the point to Generations. Alright, now we're at about the halfway point of the video, and I just wanted to let you guys know to please like and subscribe if you're enjoying so far, because when we hit 500 subscribers, I'll be live streaming myself playing Kaizo Unleashed. Anyways, let's move on to the next section now. Alright, now this category is going to be a little bit weird, because since both Egg Dragoons are technically the same, the only difference really being the Sonics, their attacks are actually a lot more similar than you would think. So the main attacks from the Egg Dragoon in Sonic Unleashed are the Fire Missiles, the Ice Bomb, the Drills, plus the Free Falling section. And you're never gonna believe what Generations has. Fire, Ice, Drill, Fall. So basically the same moveset. So when it comes to this category, it's not about which one has more attacks or mechanics, it's about which one executed it better. So when it comes to Unleashed, most of the attacks from the Egg Dragoon are basically one and done. Once you dodge him, the Egg Dragoon is basically defenseless until the next phase. But in Generations, instead of simply waiting for an opening, you're almost always reacting to whatever the Egg Dragoon is throwing at you. And to make it clear, here are both Egg Dragoons doing the same ice attack back to back. As you can see in Unleashed, the ice attack is only thrown once, whereas in Generations, it's thrown multiple times. This convinces me that Generations executes the attacks better because it simply does more with them. It's not that the attacks themselves are better because they are basically the same thing. It's just that Generations gets more value out of them, keeping the player consistently engaged. Now, to be fair to Unleashed, the attacks from this boss fight aren't bad. After all, the Generations moveset is literally based off this one. But the key difference here is that although I do think the Unleashed Egg Dragoon executes its attacks well, it is focused way more on impact and spectacle rather than anything else, which admittedly does make the fight sequences look cooler, but unfortunately that's not what I'm judging here. So anyways, with that in mind, I'm gonna be giving this point to Generations. So for skill ceiling, I'm not going to be looking at how difficult the boss is, but more really how much room is there to improve. Starting off with Unleashed, you could definitely improve throughout the fight by learning the Dragoon's attack patterns. This allows you to land more hits and combos on the Dragoon, therefore cutting down the time it takes to defeat it. And the generations, it's basically the exact same thing. And now I've got to answer the question of how either of these skill ceilings are different from each other. And to be honest with you, I don't really know. I mean, I guess in Unleash you can level up your stats, but that's not really skill since you have to grind for that. So what's the actual difference between skill in these two fights? It's the rails. Allow me to explain. Throughout the boss fight of Generations, there are several dash pads placed throughout the level, and these allow you to reach these rail grinds. Since they bring you to the Dragoon faster, these are essentially a shortcut, which I'd consider pretty skillful. Not only that, there are just simply more obstacles to dodge throughout the fight. And in Unleashed's case, I feel like I've already said this before, but there's simply not enough attacks. I mean, right now, I'm showing you the longest attack that this boss has to offer, and it literally only lasts 5 seconds. Plus, the biggest highlight of the Unleashed Dragoon, the quick time events, aren't really difficult to master. If all the quick time events were like this, maybe I'd change my mind, but that's not the case right now. Also, before anyone says anything about combos, you can literally just hold Y and one-tap the Dragoon as long as your strength level is high enough. So for those reasons, I'll be giving the point of skill ceiling to Sonic Generations. This category is easily the most subjective of them all so far. So for this one, I'm gonna try something a little different. So for right now, just for a couple of seconds, close your eyes. I'm gonna play a bit of the song, and you're gonna tell me what you feel. So what did you feel when listening to that? Urgency? Danger? Suspense? Well, whatever the word is, my point is, this song has a lot of emotion. Like for example, how some parts of the song are much more dramatic, while others are a lot calmer. Like for example, this part. That part felt a lot more hopeful. Anyways, my point is, from beginning to end, this song perfectly captures the feeling of the threat that the Dragoon is. Now we'll play a bit of the Generations OST for you to hear. Notice how similar it sounds? I used to honestly think that this version of the Dragoon song was the same as the Unleashed one, but if you listen closely enough, you'll notice that the instruments are different. For me personally, the biggest difference that I can notice immediately is the synth. And I think we all know how everyone feels about that.
Stop it. Get some help.
Anyways, to me personally, the Generations version of the Dragoon song feels a lot more cleaner to me, if it makes sense. I think this is because the instruments that are used in this version come out to be a lot quieter. So essentially, both of these songs are the same besides the instruments. But to me personally, I prefer the Unleashed version better because it just feels really cinematic, really complementing the intensity of the boss fight itself. So for those reasons, I'll be giving this point to Unleashed. So, before we move into the final category, let's do a quick recap of the scoreboard so far. Build-up went to Unleashed for its stronger sense of anticipation. Visuals also went to Unleashed for its cinematic presentation. Pacing went to Generations for having a more consistent pace. Attacks went to Generations because it made more use out of its moveset. Skill ceiling also went to Generations for offering more optimization when cutting down runtime. And finally, music went to Unleashed for its more memorable and intense take on the Dragoon theme. Now the reason I wanted to recap all of these is because the final category of this video isn't going to be just another category. It's going to be the culmination of everything we've reviewed so far. Replayability. So let's see what we've got. Unleash absolutely delivers the more memorable first experience. Its incredible build-up, cinematic visuals, and unforgettable soundtrack make the fight feel like a true climax. But once that initial experience wears off, what keeps me coming back is the gameplay itself. Generations' tighter pacing keeps the action moving. Its attacks stay engaging even after multiple playthroughs, and its higher skill ceiling gives me a reason to keep improving every time I take on the fight. So while Unleashed is the boss fight that leaves a stronger first impression, Generations is the boss fight that I always find myself coming back to. And that's why I'll be giving the final point of replayability to Generations. So I'm just gonna assume that a lot of you guys are gonna disagree with me based off this post that I made 5 months ago. Am I really that slow? Wait a minute. Anyways, those are just my thoughts. If you think Unleashed deserved to win, or if you agree with me that Generations is the better fight, let me know why in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe because when I hit 500 subscribers, I'll live stream myself playing Kaizo Unleashed. With all that said, I'll see you guys in the next video.